All right, so this here is the third card that we're going to do. So the start of it is very similar to the second one. We are going to stamp the ivy and then we're going to foil it. And then we're going to add a few extra accents to do the red, as well as my favorite way of outlining that in a way that you get a nice clean border. So very first step, same as the first, we're going to put a little bit of the gel down on this block. Now I probably don't actually need to do this because I just did the other card, but just so that you see, and putting a fresh amount each time is a good thing. And once again, nice thin layer. Now take a look at your stamp before you stamp it. Make sure that you've got the gel on all the surfaces. We don't want to miss areas. Place your stamp where you want it to go. Press nice and firm, and I do jiggle it kind of a little bit just to make sure that I've gotten all the edges of the stamp. This needs to completely dry till it's clear. I have one here all ready to go, so let's move this out of the way. Put my foam back in the bag here, and like I said, this bag does get a little bit messy, but it's nice to be able to use that fun foam over and over again and have a sealed area for it to live. I'm gonna grab my machine. Now all these pieces of foil that we're foiling with, don't throw them away. The last card I'm going to show you a different way that you can reuse all of those bits and get them used up, because foil in itself is not the cheapest thing. So it's always nice to be able to use all of our supplies. So once again, I'm going to put the plate down, and I like to try to make sure that my plate, that the foil is as flat as possible. Run it through. And then remove that foil. Now once again, same as last time, it didn't foil quite as much as I would like, so I'm going to add a piece of cardstock below it just to thicken up that sandwich. Actually, I'm going to add 2 just to tighten it up a little bit. And it's best to use cardstock because cardstock has some give to it, so you don't want to use anything that's very rigid and ruin your machine. There we go, that's better. All right, let's put this to the side. Now the first thing I'm going to do is use the tape to go around the edges. So I have a tape that is 1/8 of an inch here. This is the thinnest this tape comes. And I'm just going to place it around all 4 edges. And cutting the ends so that I get nice square edges here. And I'm trying to butt this up as close to that other tape edge as possible, because if there's a gap, you're going to see it with the foil. There we go, and one more side. And then here I'm cutting that to the edge of the tape, not the outer edge, the inner edge. So put the tape to the side. Now the last thing before, there it is, before I, well, I'm not going to foil quite yet. I'm taking some Tombo multi glue and I'm putting it over every place that I think there's a berry. Now Tombo multi glue is a glue that is really lovely when you're using it for crafting. When you put it with 2 pieces of paper together, it sticks and you can't rip anything apart. If you just let it dry on its own, it dries to a tacky finish. So it's perfect for foiling, but once again, you're limited to what shapes and stuff like that you can make with this. So I tend to use it for berries and just dots and stuff like that. So I need to let this sit until it's completely translucent. It's gonna have a little bit of a yellow tone to it, but you're gonna be able to see through it. And I'll be back once that is ready and we'll continue. All right, so our glue is pretty much dry. There's a few areas that are not as dry as I would like them, but I think it's going to work. And if not, it's going to show you what happens if you don't wait quite long enough. So I'm taking the backing of that tape off. I'm just using a pair of tweezers and tucking the tip underneath the backing and then grabbing it to pull it right off. So I've got a piece of scrap foil here. This tape sticks really, really well. And it's a great way to use up that bits because any part here that's got foil on it, you can absolutely use. So when you put your foil down, I tend to try to pick an area that's pretty much or pretty well covered with foil so that it goes onto my tape. If there's a part that doesn't have foil on it, it's going to remain sticky, but then I can take a different part of the foil and put that on the tape. So it's a great way to use this up so any foil that's on there gets used up. It does get to the point where even though you've got a tiny little bit of foil left on your sheet, you might as well just toss it because it's really hard to get it off. But this technique is a really great way to get some of this used because why waste it? So now that the edges are done, now I can do the berries. And that just requires pressing down on those glue dots. Now I do want to make sure for that I am also using a red part of the foil and not the clear, because if it's clear, there's no foil left on it. So there we go. We've got our piece here foiled around the edges and foiled in the center. So I'm going to glue it onto my card base. Just using some Distress Collage medium. It dries clear and it dries matte, so if anything happens to seep out, it is going to be invisible. No one's going to be able to see it. I'm going to hold that down for a few seconds until that glue starts to hold. And then for me, this looks slightly a little bit plain, even though it's nice and foiled. There's just not as much dimension as I would like, so I typically like to just add a little bow to just give it a little bit of dimension. I've just got some thin gold ribbon here. And then I like to cut the edges of, or the tails of the ribbon at a little bit of a slant. And then I use the Distress Collage medium to hold it in place. Now, because it's a liquid glue, it does need to sit and dry. If I move this around, it's likely going to, the bow's likely going to fall off. So I do just let that completely sit and not be disturbed for a while so that that glue can dry completely. And now that I said that, I'm going to lift it up so that you can see it. But there we go. Another foiled card with stamping as well as the tape in 2 different colors. We'll see you in the next video.